we'll say lower value players right now,
Yeah.
guys that we think could pop off. And look, we're not going to sit here and tell you, hey, these guys are going to be ones at their position, but they could definitely increase in value. And if you don't like them, but their value is going up, you can always trade them. And hey, you can get into the Patreon for a week for free, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Come hang out with us. Nate, let's start with you. Who is the stash that you're buying?
Oftentimes, I find that the players that I like as value buys continue to be value buys throughout their entire career. I'm talking about players like Brandon Cooks, players like Mike Evans, these guys that are constantly undervalued but continue to produce. And another player that I've been, kind of trying to buy everywhere for the past couple of years, and a little up and down in production, but Antonio Gibson. I love Antonio Gibson as a value buy for the past 2 years, really. Funny enough, I wasn't really that big of a fan of him coming out of college. Mike, did you know that Antonio Gibson played wide receiver in college?
I had heard something about that.
Yeah, I knew that. We all knew that. I actually had him graded out better as a wide receiver than I did a running back. I was actually disappointed that he came out and decided he was going to be a running back. I thought he'd be a better wide receiver.
Yeah.
But either way, he's been productive throughout his career, and especially in the receiving game. Because of all this together, where he's been productive in the receiving game, he's also been a pretty good runner, and at times has been, in a goal line threat. He's not a free agent. And I don't think he's going back to Washington, Mike.
No, I don't think so.
Now, Gibson's the great thing about free agency is a lot of times you get to find yourself in a new team that has an idea for you, a role for you. And Gibson is the kind of running back that you put into a receiving role, whether that's like the Jerick McKinnon role that we saw at the Chiefs for a while, or something different. There's going to be volume in the receiving game for Antonio Gibson next year, no matter where he goes. That's going to be the idea when they pick up Antonio Gibson and sign him to a contract. Now, do I think he's going to be an RB1? No, I don't think so. But I think Antonio Gibson right now, you could probably pick up for a third round pick, Mike, is a really good RB4 for your team, RB5, where you can put him into your flex next year. It might be a little bit matchup dependent, depending on where he goes and what kind of offense he falls into. But that receiving work that we see from running backs, that is oftentimes the best kind of work that we can see from those kind of third tier running backs and below, where they're not the workhorses. They're not going to carry, the majority of their backfield touches. But if they can just get good receiving work, they can be relevant for your fantasy team. Antonio Gibson has that ability. He has that floor that comes with the receiving work. I'm about it. For a third round pick, Mike, when you can pick up a cheap running back that you'll be able to put into, at least your flex, if not into your, top 2 RB spots in a bye week or something like that, I think Antonio Gibson's a great stash right now.
Yeah, I do not hate that. And if you're doing it for the third round pick, and if I have multiple thirds, I'm gladly I'll try to throw the latest one I have at that, of course, but I don't hate that at all. Las Vegas Raiders wide receiver Tre Tucker. Still some questions, especially offensively, around the Las Vegas Raiders. But he's bumped Hunter Renfrow from the starting slot wide receiver position. Nate, did you know that? I bet you did.
Well, I knew Hunter Renfrow wasn't doing much.
He's doing something. He's doing a whole lot of nothing. He was a third round pick last year. So not the best year, but sometimes, when you're buying stashes, you're buying guys that didn't necessarily have a good year, a little down in their luck, whatever it may be. 19 catches for 331 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think that given some time and good opportunity, he could be a solid wide receiver 3 or flex starter for your team. And if you could buy him for an early 4th in a super flex league, or his value is that of Juwan Johnson, Trey Lance, Juwan Jennings, any other Juwans out there that you can use to get Tre Tucker, I would gladly do that. In a 1 quarterback league, we're talking a late 3rd, KJ Osborne, Brevin Jordan. The fact of the matter is, I like a lot of these players. Not so much the guys I listed in Superflex, but I like KJ Osborne. I like Brevin Jordan. However, I think right now Tre Tucker has a much clearer path to being fantasy relevant than those guys do. I'm stashing Tre Tucker. Nate, what say you about that?
This is a pretty low risk move here. Like you said, you're probably moving a 4th round pick for Tre Tucker right now. I don't hate it because I actually got to watch some Tre Tucker this year. He was kind of exciting. I think there's flashes there. I don't know what kind of opportunity exists with the Raiders, as long as Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers are there. But as wide receiver 3, I think Tre Tucker, he will flash and pop up on your screen sometimes. So, for a late 4th or early 4th, I don't hate it, Mike.
Yeah, it's one of those things. There's going to be times, and I think it's important to note that right now we're mocking and the combine has yet to happen. Okay, unless you're listening to this after the combine, in which case the combine just happened. But that being said, none of these players have rosters yet. So we love all these prospects. Like, that's my guy. I'm getting my guy in the 4th round. But we see it every year. All of a sudden, you get into the 4th round, and what we're saying right now, like, there's going to be a lot of value there. It may dry up quick. Maybe your league's different. I don't know. So if you're moving a pick that could end up being absolutely nothing for a player that could be absolutely something productive, I'm happily going to make that move.
And I think, just one last thing on Tre Tucker. If we're talking kind of like ceiling wise, what's the ceiling here with Tre Tucker? I think kind of what we've seen from Darnell Mooney. I think that's like the ceiling for Tre Tucker.
Yeah.
And I think that might be a little optimistic, but even if we get something a little bit lower than Darnell Mooney at his best, he'd be more than happy moving a late 4th. I mean, early. I keep saying late 3rd, early 4th.
Hey guys, Bob here, dropping by to interrupt your scheduled programming to introduce today's trusted partner, Aura. A lot of our focus here at the Dynasty Rewind is protecting our Dynasty assets and taking care of the long-term vision. What drew us to Aura is that they reflect this mindset, but with the most important assets in your life. Have you ever received a spam call or a suspicious email? I know I have. And it's not just annoying, it's a sign of a much larger problem. Behind these unwanted calls and emails lie data brokers, which are websites that buy and sell your personal information without your consent. Geez, not great, Bob. What? Okay, weird. You guys see that? Don't know what that was about. I recently did a search for my own name online and was shocked and quite frankly disgusted at my information popping up over multiple data broker websites. And that's when I realized just how vulnerable I was to online threats. But that's where Aura comes in. They're more than just an online security service. They're your personal bodyguard in the digital world. Aura actively identifies which data brokers are selling your information and takes action by sending out opt-out requests on your behalf. Not only does this cut down on all those annoying spam emails and phone calls, but it also shields you and your loved ones from potential cyber threats and hackers. And they don't just stop at the protection. They offer unparalleled convenience as well. With their comprehensive suite of tools, you can safeguard your online presence with ease from an app or your desktop, whichever you prefer. I've made the choice to take my online privacy seriously. And with Aura by my side, I have the peace of mind to focus on what really matters. Dynasty Fantasy Football. Just kidding. But if you value your privacy as much as I do, don't wait any longer. Check out Aura today and take control of your online privacy. Go to aura.com/Dynasty Rewind and take a free 2-week trial on us. 14 days to get the full experience, get in on all the tools, and really experience everything Aura has to offer. You can find that link on your screen, in the YouTube description box, or in the pinned comment below. But hey, with all that said, thank you all so much for listening. Now, let's get back to the content you came for.
WanDale Robinson, who last year quietly put up 60 receptions for 525 yards and only 1 touchdown. Giants were not a potent offense, let's say, but he was among the league's best in some stats. He was 30th in yards after the catch per reception with 4.9 yards. Showing off that ability to create some yards after himself. Being 30th in the NFL is pretty good. There's a lot of really good wide receivers in the NFL. And he was second best, Mike, in the NFL in the contested catch rate. He had 4 out of 5 contested catches, contested catch targets he caught. So that's an 80% rate. I know that's a low sample size, but come on, he was second best.
Counts.
Minimum 5 targets. All right. So those, and when I say qualifying wide receivers, we used PFF's 20% of whatever the max was. So in this is its targets, 20% of 179 targets, whatever that is. Someone do the quick math. That is what the threshold is for these stats. But WanDale Robinson, I like what he's brought to the table, and he's a really good slot receiver. That's his limit. I'll be honest there. We're not going to see him grow into much more than I think a really solid slot receiver. But there's a lot of fantasy production in the slot. And 80% of his passing route snaps last year were out of the slot, 3rd most in the NFL behind only Tyler Boyd and Josh Downs, actually. So he is really, really a slot guy. And that actually makes me like him more. Number one, because you get good volume out of the slot, especially a guy like WanDale who's quick, create yards after the catch, and has proven to be a productive slot wide receiver. I mean, put up 500 yards with what at quarterback this year. And then if they bring in another wide receiver like a Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors, those guys will play outside. That's fine. It's not really going to affect WanDale Robinson. Believe me, there's plenty of targets to go around in the New York Giants receiving room. To finish it all up, WanDale Robinson, what do you have to do to go acquire this guy? He's still young. He's still someone that we are looking for upside moving forward. You can move a guy like Brandon Cooks for him. Get a little bit younger at the wide receiver position. Maybe a Rashid Shaheed, who's valued pretty similar to him. I would personally rather have WanDale Robinson. I understand there's people out there that would rather have Shaheed, but to his or her own. And then an early third, Mike. I think you can get WanDale Robinson right now for an early third. And honestly, I think that's a pretty good value.
I like it for what you're paying. And for the record, Jalin Hyatt, who I'm stashing. That's right.
Ooh, we love the Giants offense around here.
Well, hey, when I type up something like another underperformer last season, like the Giants as a whole, he does have some talent, and given an opportunity, I think he could be more productive. Look, the Giants offense has to get better. I do not see there's just no way it could get worse, right? Like, can it? We hope that the Giants offense gets better next year because I guess things always could get worse. But he did average 16.2 yards per reception last year, 23 catches, 373 yards, no touchdowns. And he did play in all 17 games. He had 7 starts as well. So he's on the field. He's learning. The production wasn't there, but the production for the team as a whole wasn't there. Daniel Jones didn't look the best when he was playing. Look, the New York Giants wide receiver depth chart is bad. I don't know what they're going to do in the draft, and who knows with them. They've been all over the place. Right now, if the season started today, your 3 starters would be Jalin Hyatt, Darius Slayton, and WanDale Robinson. So for his price and potential upside, I'm willing to stash. And his price, glad you asked, in a super flex, you're looking at like a mid-third. Sam Howell, who we don't think is going to have a future in Washington. He's also valued around Mike Williams and Tyler Lockett if you want to get younger. I think if you move Tyler Lockett, you can get Jalin Hyatt plus. I don't know about Mike Williams right now. In a 1-quarterback league, again, he lines up with the mid-third. Raheem Mostert and Jonathan Mingo. So, Nate, I'm sure you'd rather stash WanDale Robinson, but what do you think about Jalin Hyatt there?
Yeah, I don't hate the Jalin Hyatt either. I think there's value to be had in the Giants wide receiver room. The question is it WanDale Robinson? Is it Jalin Hyatt? Either one is probably capped because I expect them to add a wide receiver at the next level. That's why I lean Jalin. I lean Jalin. I lean WanDale Robinson because I believe that slot position is going to be his no matter what. But if they're bringing in Malik Neighbors, if they're bringing in Rome Odunze, I would be more worried probably for Hyatt. But long term, I think Slayton probably the odd man out after next year, of course. So if you're moving forward with like a Rome Odunze or a Malik Neighbors with a Hyatt and a WanDale Robinson wide receiver room, honestly, I don't think that's the worst thing for the New York Giants moving forward.
All right, Nate, let's kick it to you. And we have got one more stash each. Who's your last one?
Yep. Mike, I got to the show sheet before you. I put a tight end on here, and I put one of my favorite tight ends who's once again continued to be undervalued throughout his career. He led his draft class in receptions as a rookie, and yet he is still valued into the 20s at the tight end position. Cade Otten for the Buccaneers. Don't really understand what we're missing with Cade Otten over here. He's too undervalued for what he's done with Tampa Bay. And the fact that, Mike Evans is a free agent now. I don't know if he's coming back or not. But Cade Otten has been a consistent producer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And Mike, he plays without gloves. It looks so cool. It looks so old school. He looks like a guy who's been out there for the last 30 years playing, like retro like that. I love it. He's just out there catching the ball, no gloves, with the knuckles taped up. That makes me like him even more, to be honest. He's not been a huge tight end threat. Honestly, Mike, you look at his stats, they're not the most impressive. But he's been consistent for the Buccaneers. I think, he's definitely your tight end 2, tight end 3. But through 2 years, seen 130 targets. And that's
impressive.
Kind of hard for, a tight end to do in their first 2 years. And he's done that. So while the production is kind of lagged behind, he hasn't had over 500 yards in his career, but the Buccaneers' offense the past 2 years has not been good, and until like the second half of this season. And in that time is when we start to see Cade Otten look a little bit better. So while I don't know if Cade Otten quite has that top 12 upside, I think, picking up Cade Otten right now as your tight end 3, he has the potential to become your tight end 2 if he's not already your tight end 2. I think he's kind of a lower level tight end 2 for a contending team, but I still think that he's someone that you're happy to have. And he's acquirable right now for, you could downgrade from a Dallas Goedert and a second round pick and a Cade Otten. If Dallas Goedert is not your, favorite thing out there, and you have another tight end that you can start outside of Cade Otten, if you're just trying to get some depth and add on an asset there, I like a move like that. Also, you can move like a guy like Tucker Kraft right now for Cade Otten. I personally would rather have Cade Otten, a little bit less target competition than Tucker Kraft.
Yeah.
Also, maybe like his teammate, Trey Palmer. You can move Trey Palmer right now for Cade Otten. I like Trey Palmer, but give me the tight end. There's a lot more competition at wide receiver.
Yeah, I like this. And if you look at Cade Otten's stats here, started all 17 games, played in all 17 games.
And so consistent.
Yeah, I mean, his targets went up, his receptions went up, his yards went up, his touchdowns went up, his yards per reception went up. Everything went up. Now, I'm not talking about these are exponential leaps here.
Yeah.
They're minimal, but the fact is we have a quarterback showing trust in a young player, and I like it. I'm all in. You know, I'm all in on
and Baker's going to get extended, so I like it.
Yeah, I like that Baker's going to get extended. I love seeing guys like Jared Goff. We talked about in the last pod, Baker Mayfield, kind of castaways from previous teams, and they go somewhere else to get a fresh start, and it just works. I love seeing that. And I'll tell you who I'm stashing, my possibly last stash of the podcast. That's Denver Broncos wide receiver Marvin Mims. I was a big fan of him. I think you were as well last year, but then people kind of soured on him. The Broncos offense was not great last year. It was very inconsistent at times, and I loved his profile coming out. Nate, the vibes, they checked out for sure. He was a second-round pick of Sean Payton last year. A lot of people think that either Sutton or Judy will be on their way out. I think it's going to be Judy. I don't think Cortland Sutton's going anywhere. That's if I see one player leaving, that's who I think it is. And that's going to open the door for more Marvin Mims, and I'm here for it. So his rookie year, 22 catches, 377 yards, and 1 touchdown. Nothing great. It was very sporadic, very spotty all over the season. Still young, Nate. He's only going to be 22 when the season starts. He's going to be younger than some of these rookies that are coming in. That's a good thing. In Superflex, you could get him for like a 24 third right now. That's what his value lined up as. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think you need to have a second. He's valued around Tucker Kraft, Quentin Johnston. I saw Quentin Johnston for Mims. I'm sorry. I think I would make that trade right now. 224. I'm sorry. It was Quentin Johnston for Mims and 224 fourths.
Yeah.
I would do that.
I'm out on Quentin.
Somebody traded Miles Sanders for Marvin Mims.
I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah, I would too. So
I think Sean Payton was actually just talking about Marvin Mims today in his press conference and was talking about how the only thing holding Marvin Mims back this season was us. That's what he said.
Okay, that's good. I love hearing that. All right, so would you be interested? Would you pay this?
Yeah, okay. I'd absolutely pay these prices. I was actually moving off of Marvin Mims near the end of the season, but I was still getting second round value. So I was getting kind of the same value that I picked him for. So I was willing to make that move off of him. But for a third round pick, I'm all over Marvin Mims as a post hype sleeper.
I know I said that was going to be our last one. I got a bonus for you guys. Davis Allen from the Los Angeles Rams, tight end. He was a 5th round pick last year. Look, he didn't do a ton, but he was behind Tyler Higbee. Only 10 catches for 95 yards and 1 touchdowns. But for what it's worth, Tyler Higbee, he didn't do what I expected him to do last year either. 47 catches, 495 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Not very Tyler Higbee-esque, if I may say. The Rams could be looking in a different direction. Higbee's getting older. He's hurt. And the only other tight end on the roster, this breaks my heart, is Bryson Hopkins. And as much as I loved him, I don't think that's going to be a thing. And this is more value and opportunity over talent right here. I didn't think that Davis Allen was the most talented. Good hands, kind of slow, decent route runner, but the opportunity is there. I love to stash tight ends. If he has a few good games with Higbee out, you could start him if you need him, or you can maximize value and sell him. You're looking at an early 4th. You can move Ryan Tannehill in a Superflex league, Isaiah Hodgins, Cole Turner, who another guy I like, but it just hasn't happened. In one quarterback league, and you get this, he's somehow cheaper in a one quarterback league. I don't understand it. Peyton Hendershot, Quez Watkins, and a 4th round pick. Those were his values lines.
I don't know if the Rams are going to add a tight end this year because there's no way Tyler Higbee starts the season. He got injured way too late.
Yeah.
So they need someone to replace Tyler Higbee to start the season. Is that Davis Allen? He's certainly going to get a shot. So, Mike, if you got a 4th you want to throw around for Davis Allen, I got no problem with that. He has an opportunity this offseason to get that starting tight end position if he wants it. I don't know if they bring someone in early. I don't know what's going over there in LA.